All right, here we go. Today's guest is Kaamil Khan. He is the president of Makpar Corporation. As he prepares to take over as a second generation of leadership at Makpar, which I'm excited to hear more about. I met Kaamil through networking in the DC area and also from his participation in ACT-IAC Voyagers 2025. They just had a big event recently. It was very successful. And I've really gotten to know you probably over the last year or so and really enjoying that. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me, Jeremy. Excited to be here.
So for those who haven't met you and hung out with you in a social environment, talk about your background, talk about where you're from, who you are, and what you do.
So, yes, as you mentioned, I'm currently president of Makpar Corporation, and so my journey there is pretty interesting. Full disclosure, my parents actually founded Makpar. So when I was in private practice, I was helping them with all their contracts. But when they joined the 8A program, they heard a lot of horror stories about, you know, investing in the wrong business development team. So they asked me to
Mm.
join, learn the industry, and so, enjoyed it. We've grown quite a bit since I've joined from 25 employees to 170 plus now. So really now I'm part of the succession plan, taking over for the next step and really growing this mom and pop operation into a true small business and hopefully a mid-sized company as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I love stories like that because, the there are many people who start companies and then they're not so successful when the next generation or maybe a couple generations comes. So I love it when there's a success story there to be shared.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. Definitely at a very pivotal time for the company, but for the whole industry as a whole. So, looking forward to these challenges right now.
So let's roll the clock back a little bit and let's talk about how did you know what you wanted to be?
I still don't know what I want to be at times, Jeremy, full disclosure. But I guess both my parents are professionals. They both came to this country as immigrants. Both actually came even before we moved as a family as immigrants here to study here at school, get their master's degrees. So both were professionals. So when I was in high school, I had no option but to go to college, so to say. So I think one mistake my parents made was, ever since I was a freshman in high school, it was always college, 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 got to go to college. We had shared an interesting story that you said that you actually made your kids pay for college to get them to realize the value. I think the biggest mistake my parents made was just telling us we're going to college and that they would pay for it. Because, when I went to college, I kind of just went to college for the college experience that I saw in the movies. I never really realized what you had to do. And I wish, if I could go back and do anything over, it would have been, I would have gone back, been more involved with clubs, been more involved with just, taking my academics seriously instead of just kind of cramming right away, just to take advantage of college, right? I mean, I made some good friends. I had a lot of fun. Obviously enjoyed my football teams while I was there, but I wish I didn't realize I think one thing I wish that I really want to make sure I instill in my children is that, going to college, yes, it's fun. Yes, it's your first time. You really get freedom. You really get to explore and develop who you are. But there's a whole aspect of taking advantage of the situation, your network, going in, building your resume, and just how you can grow and develop yourself that way. I wish I had done that. And I'm glad that when I went and chose law school, I was paying for it myself, but I had all those lessons learned because I really took advantage of it. My law school experience was completely different. How I went about studying, how I went about preparing, obviously was one thing, how I went about meeting everybody, and then obviously just how I was involved. I was very fortunate. I was class president my second year of law school, now student body president my third year of law school. I never did anything like that in college. And those are all things that, I'm glad I had that second chance, but I paid a lot for it that second time around, which I wish I had done differently a little bit there.
So
Yeah.
now how did you choose where to go since you didn't have huge criteria? Did you know you were always going to go to law school?
Uh, no. So at least for college, it was either UVA, Virginia Tech, and UVA rejected me twice, so that made that an easy choice. But I really did enjoy my time at Virginia Tech, and I'm obviously very proud of what the school is doing, especially with that opening of the new innovation campus and how they've really positioned themselves in engineering. Now, I probably should have listened to my dad and studied engineering instead of biology, but that's if he listens to this, that'll be another point for him. Actually, when I graduated from college, though, I was a little bit lost. Was applying and looking for jobs in the the biopharmaceutical type space, but wasn't really enjoying the lab work. It was different when you were like goofing off with your friends in labs, and then being in the lab kind of by yourself with a few other older, scientists, so to say. Wasn't quite the same experience. So it was actually my aunt, who was a law librarian, who encouraged me to apply to law firms as a paralegal, and I applied to a great law firm that's still based in DC, Stern Kessler, and so was a paralegal for their biopharmaceuticals practice, biological sciences practice, and got to experience, just what life was like as an attorney, at least in a small segment of it. And then for law school, for me, I actually, I think for law school, it's either you go to the very best or you go to your cheapest option. And so I was fortunate I got a scholarship to Louisiana State University. And so my plan was if they win the national championship football, everyone will think I went to a smart law school. So we came very close my third year.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. And what was there a specific area of law you studied then?
No, obviously, with any law school, yes, you can take some classes and what you want to focus on, but really, I mean, again, you're just trying to pass the bar with all your law school
Right.
classes. So, for me, I did obviously enjoy certain classes there more than others. I think if there are anybody who's listening to this who's looking at law school, I think the most important classes you have to take are evidence, the rules of evidence, understanding that, and administrative law, understanding kind of our fourth branch of government, I guess so to say. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, other than those. Obviously, you can focus on tax classes, certain contracts classes, but I think the more you can get, and what I would really recommend now for folks is anything related to trial work, trial prep, evidence, any kind of clinic. Those are probably the best classes to take because that gives you the most real world experience.
Nice. And so then how did you land the first job?
So, like I mentioned, it was just good advice. Post college, it was good advice from my aunt, who I'm still very grateful for, and obviously just applying to paralegal positions. So I was fortunate there. When I graduated law school in 2012, we were still kind of coming out of that Great Recession, so to say. So that first job was a little bit harder. It was just, again, a lot of applying, but a lot of networking. And just somebody mentioned somebody was looking for a law clerk. They had a backlog of patent cases and they needed some help there. And it was just, again, dumb luck. I'm very fortunate. But again, I think getting your first job is the hardest out of any school. And then obviously, once I passed the bar, had a year of experience, just kind of understanding how to actually practice as an attorney. Because when you graduate, you really don't know anything until you actually start preparing your own pleadings and such. Then also having parents that were entrepreneurs encouraged me to start my own law practice. And so, hung my own shingle, which is another advantage of being going to law school. You don't necessarily need to, if you've taken enough clinics, you've taken enough practicals, you've actually done some actual client representation, you can be very confident hanging your own shingle because you know how to research, you know how to write. And then obviously, if you've done a little bit of arguing in court, you have enough to get started. And that's why it's called the practice of law because you're constantly practicing, trying to get better.
I love that though. It's got law. The law has a lot of parallels from a career perspective to information technology. It's very similar, right? You can go, you get your degrees or you get your education, you get your certifications, you get knowledgeable in a segment, and then you could hang your own shingle per se, right? In an information technology world, you can make a company and just go for it. And then, as you said, you learn it as you go. You figure out how to win the client. You figure out how to advertise your services. You figure out how to solve the problems that are presented to you in a way that gets good results for your customer. And I've always loved that about that comparison. Yeah, I have family members who are lawyers, and we have those kind of conversations about, the benefits of a career where you could go to another firm and then there's so much you learn from that firm. And then you go to another firm and then it's completely different,
Mhm.
even though it's the same job. And it's very similar to what I've experienced in IT. I've gone from one company to another and it's completely different. It's like almost like they do a whole different type of IT because it's a different segment of the industries that they're serving or whatnot. So I love that. Um, so looking back at what's gone on in your career, what's something you go, "Oh, man, it should not have been that hard. It should not be that hard. Our industry is making things harder, or people are making things harder. And it's not that it's wrong, but it just makes it less efficient. It could be better. And I'll caveat to say, you and I today aren't going to, solve all the world's efficiency issues and have the perfect process for everything that we can think of today. But what's something that some people should put some thought against?
Great question. So again, I have my magic wand, right? And I can wave it. I would say, speaking again, just from my role in industry, it's just engagement from government, meaningful participation through industry days, asking, having technical leaders participate in events like ACT-IAC. It's great to see the CIO, but the CIO is so removed from the day-to-day challenges of what the organization's facing. They can't give insights that really are going to matter when it comes to an actual solicitation being issued. So it'd be great to actually have the technical branch chiefs or technical leadership participating, speaking on panels. This is my specific issue. This is what I'm dealing with. This is how, the challenge we're facing. We've got a budget, we got a budget for XYZ, but really we also need ABC or something like that. I think, at times, yes, it's great to hear from the CIOs at these ATARC and the ACT-IAC and the APCIAs, but it would be really great if we could get folks like two levels down below who are in technical leadership positions there because there'll be a little bit more concrete insights that we can get. I feel like one knock I have with ACT-IAC is we've still been talking about like at the emerging tech conference, the ELC, I mean, the ELC conference. We've been talking about like the AI guardrails for so long. Obviously, I think that's going to change quite a bit now with the change in administration. But I feel like the panelists have all the change every year, but we still are talking about the same talking points,
Mm.
and it's very little. How can industry help you? I think that's what I always leave these panels with. Okay, it was, nice. I'm glad I got a little bit of FaceTime with this person, but it's still unclear to me how my company can help the government from this aspect there. And then I think the other thing is for industry, I think the biggest problem is like government's hesitant to engage with us because every time they do say yes to a meeting, they get the same. Let me show you our 20 years of history, right? Let me tell you about all these great projects we've done before you even get to understanding their problems, right? It's like when we finally get a meeting with the customer, we want to just pitch what we've done before, like a capabilities overview, but we're not trying to help them address their problems, and I think that's what really is going to be the difference between the businesses that succeed and the businesses that unfortunately end up failing.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that as we get through the changes that are going to happen in government over the next few years, that we get better exposure to, oh, these are the challenges that have been happening, right? That's the whole idea, right? If we're going to be seeking efficiency, then that means we got to do some self-evaluation of,
Mhm.
well, where are our pain points? Where are we not efficient? Where are things needing some attention? And let's talk about them. I agree with you completely. The more we can talk about things, especially since we're not allowed to talk about them when a procurement is on the street. So the more we talk about them in advance on an ongoing basis, we build relationships, safe relationships. If you don't want to have, if you don't want to look like you're favoring companies, you participate in the ACT-IAC working groups, or get some speakers to come talk about government problems generically. Maybe you don't want to expose, we got these problems at our agency, but let's talk about, general challenges, because, government people talk to each other all the time.
Mhm.
And we
Yep.
and we talk frankly to each other all the time about the mess, or the challenge, or the implementations we're undergoing, or the new mandates that have come out that don't have any money, and all those sorts of things. We talk about those things, and it'd be easy enough for somebody who to be empowered to go have a conversation and say, I'm not just speaking for me, I'm talking about government. This is the challenges government is facing, and real people have told me XYZ, right? And to do that, you don't have to expose any specific system vulnerabilities, or security concerns. You can do it in a way that is informative. And yeah, I completely agree with you.
No, yeah, no, valid point. And I think it's because it's a safe space, right? Sometimes when you're talking to colleagues, it's and I think obviously protests, everyone's scared of a protest, right? So
Yeah.
maybe these rules that if you do lose a protest, you owe the government's costs, maybe that can help reflect it there. But again, I think it just comes down to having industry days that are, I think for every major acquisition over 100 million, having an industry day, but have your actual program person there and say, these are my direct challenges there.
Yep.
I think when Harrison Smith was at IRS with the pilot IRS initiative, they had an industry day. And so they had asked somebody who was actually going to be the program manager for the program to speak. And, they were kind of trying to give like a diplomatic answer. And Harrison said, no, come on, share your actual things because that's what we're trying to do is actually share the brass tacks. And so I thought that was one of the best industry days that I'd ever been to because, again, we were hearing from the person who's directly going to be working with these vendors. This is my challenge. This is what I need you to do, right? These are the
Right.
problems I'm being faced with. And so I thought that was a great example of what a meaningful industry day can be, right? If you have a contracting officer, they're not technical. They're just going to share high level, maybe this is what I'm thinking of. This is the acquisition timeline, but it doesn't, that could have been an email. It's not a meaningful use of industry's time nor the government's time.
No, it's true. I think I've also seen some agencies get really, it's almost innovative to do something different, where they would have a reading room of materials. So, in IT, we're always scared to disclose like very specific information about these are the server software we use.
Hmm.
This is how many of them we have. This is our security infrastructure that we've deployed. Because the more things you share, the more ammunition, some adversary has to try to attack and get into your infrastructure. But that doesn't mean we can't do that in an NDA kind of way, right? Where hey, come into our reading room, sign an NDA. You can read it there. You can't take it with you, but you have some background knowledge on what it is we're doing. And so when you write your proposal, you have kind of a better idea what you're really getting yourself into and the kind of types of experience you need to have and articulate to us. So I've seen that happen. I've seen that being very successful. Where we can share those details in a closed setting, and anybody who wants to access it can access it, right? We're not giving it only to certain companies, but we do have to figure out ways to be innovative in how we restrict access to that information, not post it out on sam.gov or something.
No, absolutely. I think things like that. But also, I think it comes back down to innovation, right? There's the government, it's been a buzzword in our industry for so long, and it's overused in so many ways. But there's also that risk factor, right? To even be innovative, you have to go through so many levels of executive approval to even get the budget, to get the chance to go after it, and then it can get shut down as well. I wish there was a way to relax those, loosen those guardrails a little bit
Mm,
to allow, the opportunity to fail with something, right? We always say in Agile it's supposed to be fail fast, but we never government customers are very hesitant to proceed forward there because no one wants to be the one who has a failure associated with them. And I think, I don't know if it's the annual government congressional appropriation cycle, if we could change that maybe 2 or 3 years to give. So instead of having it be like a use it or lose it type money situation, I think there's a lot that I do think Doge is trying to bring attention to some of the practices and for example the IRS. I know they're looking at we have so many custom development contracts and we have the corresponding O&M contract. Do we need so many vendors handling this? Can we go towards a single unified platform? But I really think how money is allocated, how money is appropriated, and definitely if we can expand the runway a little bit, right? Especially if we're trying to bring a Silicon Valley performance outcome based mindset, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I know, the Obama administration tried to innovate with the digital service. That they came in with digital services as a new concept. That was something unique and new that hadn't been done before, where they brought in kind of the Silicon Valley thought. 18F has done something similar. And it's interesting. What you said kind of made me think, man, next time I do a contract, one of the other things I should share from a governmental perspective is the bureaucracy you're going to have to go through to deploy. Like, what do we look like on the nuts and bolts? Like, we can say we're being agile, but what's it really look like? Is it really agile? What kind of documentation requirements are going to be there, and what kind of committees are you going to present to be able to get approval? And what's our ATO process look like? Is it the same as every other agency, or do we have some unique stuff put in place? And all of that stuff squelches innovation and slows things down, sometimes positively, most times negatively. Um, but I do, yeah, I'm hoping that some of the change that's being incurred over the next few years, some of these focuses on do you really need this or do you really need that, or are we structured correctly? I'm hoping it raises awareness on the bureaucracy we've imposed through mostly through a lot of congressional acts that are unfunded. Right? All the security stuff that's come out, all well intended. All of the laws around information technology, all well attended, intended with positive purpose meant, but when the rubber hits the road, it turns into bureaucracy. And so it gives us a chance, hopefully, to have somebody, have somebody who's coming from an outside view, who's a Silicon Valley style person, then hopefully takes a look at some of the ways we do things and get some great suggestions on how we can fix those.
Yeah, no, but I mean, also, in fairness to, you and your other government counterparts, you've also been waiting on this contract for like 2 years, right? To finally get there. So
Right.
at times, like, you've had so much work that's built up that you need this contractor to solve. And I think, one thing, and it's a little bit harder when you're a newer small business, especially at a newer agency where you're won your first contract, managing customer expectations, right? Setting the customer expectations and that's one of the things that, we've learned the hard way at sometimes, right? Got a few licks on that as well. But I think it's it's unfortunate, that the procurement cycles have gone on so long, and then with protests, with
Right.
delays, with the not having, now we even have underfunded requests that, just to try to get things moving. At times, you have to feel sympathetic that the government folks have been waiting on this need for 2 years. So by the time it's finally awarded, it's a little bit dated with what their needs are,
Yeah. Well, that just means we got to write better contracts so that we build the flexibility into the framework of what it is we're trying to accomplish, and not hard code a 2 year ago thought pattern that is no longer relevant because now we're moved on to some new technology. Yeah, interesting. Well, that so much there to unpack, and we could talk about that all day. What's coming up for you or your company here in the near future?
So obviously, it's a nervous time for I think everyone in government and everyone in industry. And I hope I'm not speaking out of school with that. But I think for us, we know we've been doing good work with the agencies we're at, but it's different. You can't just focus on the client deliverables, and that's one thing I've been telling our managers now in my new role. We can't afford to be humble anymore. You can't just expect because you did good work, you have positive CPARs, that's going to carry the day. It's all these different things that we have to focus on now. Obviously, showcasing what we're delivering from a statutory perspective, for example, I think that is rule number one, right? Making sure that you're showing that you are implementing congressional legislation with this program. And if you're not, what are the efficiencies to be gained? What are the cost savings, if we optimize this way? I think it's just kind of changing the mindset. It's, winning the work has always been hard and delivery has always been harder. But I think in a way now it's your options aren't guaranteed, right? I mean, that's always been one of the advantages between, doing commercial work or working for the government or being a contract to the federal government is the contracts are longer. You will never get a commercial contract for 5 years right off the bat. But now it's like every option now, you really have to show what's your impact. How are you really driving the mission and supporting the mission, but really also delivering efficiency and optimizing. And I think that's been the hardest part for our industry is we've never really had to think about our work that way. There was a requirement, we priced it competitively, we win it, and we're going to deliver to that requirement. Now, in a way, we have to almost help the government, help our government customers justify why this work is important. And I think that it's an interesting challenge and probably a necessary challenge that our industry needed to face. But I think it's just one that we have to navigate closely right now. And then, I've been fortunate, my new role has given me the chance to reorganize the company, bring in some new leadership, some new ideas. And so just kind of positioning ourselves for how the government is going to be purchasing from a services perspective, really what they're going to be purchasing. I think there's going to be a lot more shifting away from custom development, which I think was already happening, but really shifting over towards proven platforms. And how are we going to take advantage of those? I think that would be the big thing as well.
Well, Camila, it's so great to chat with you and hear your story. And I love your ideas. And every time we meet, we have some great conversations. So I look forward to the next time we interact. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me, Jeremy. It was a pleasure.